welcome back. Glad you could join me in the shop today. Really cool project. In the last video, I said we were going to build an extension wing on the side of this, between the rails for this Vega Pro 50 that we installed. So I got some measurements here. Today we're going to do that. I'm going to take this piece of table that was left over. It's an actual side table that they had here that was extendable. Since we removed that system, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this piece, attach it here with some bolts run through, and then we're going to use a piece of plywood with some 2x4s and shims, and we'll make that out of wood on the side for the rest of the table. And then everything will be one continuous top all the way, and then when we put big sheets of plywood on there to rip them directly in half or cross cut and things like that, we won't have the chance of it tipping into and hitting the rail and then screwing up the project, getting caught in a saw, and that's a safety issue as well. So we're going to do that today, all right? So let's get out the tools, start drilling, start screwing things down, and get done. Okay, so the first thing I did was take that side piece of the original table that I'm going to bolt back on. I have to position it here, level it off, and I got to affix it to the side of the table. I no longer have the existing rails that came with the table saw, and that's how it was held in. You can see by the previous holes that were drilled. So what I did was I measured and I made some marks here, and I'm going to drill through there. I'm going to use some bolts, some washers, and some lock washers with the nut on the other side, so this way when we crank it down and tighten it up, it'll never come loose again, even with the vibration of the saw when it's in action. Okay, so what I did now is I have the extension table up. It's held in place with clamps. I marked out the holes that I already drilled onto the table. So I'm going to remove the clamps. I'm going to take a center punch, make a guide for the drill, and drill the holes. And we should be completely level. So I went ahead and put the bolts through, lined up the table. I have some clamps holding it in place while I put the lock washers on and the nut. Just going to make that hand tight for now, and then we're going to tighten it down with some wrenches and a ratchet. While we level it off, you see I have my speed square up there. We're going to use that to level the top of the table. So once I get this adjusted here, we could really tighten it up, and that'll be the final adjustment, and then we can start making the wood part of the table. The lock washer will prevent it from coming loose from the vibration of the saw. All right, so what we'll do is, you can see it's off right now, it needs to be lifted up. So what I'll do is I'll hold it with the back of my hand as I push up on it while I'm tightening. Okay, so I installed that piece back, and that's about the best it's going to get. Okay, so what I'm doing here for the front rail is I'm just roughing out some measurements. What happens is when I slide this fence all the way off into the extension, if I leave the 2x4 in its rear form right here without ripping it down, and it's against the front rail, then the fence is going to hit it where the cam is. We can't have that, because then I just shorten my whole rip capacity and everything was a waste. So I'm just going to mark out about 1/8 of an inch past the cam. And now what we're going to do is we're going to rip this down, then I could put it back against here, and I'll make a mark where it's going to come out with a marker. You're not going to be able to see a pencil mark on here, just to give me an idea of where it's going to sit when I go back and I run the bolts through the bottom of those plates. So let's get to ripping. to do is make sure as it travels, I have plenty of room, which I do, so I can actually move this back. All right, got it right where we want it. Now we're going to drill some holes, bolt it in. Okay, now we pretty much have everything in place. Got the 2x4 up. I'm going to pre-drill some holes, and then I'm going to run these self-tapping bolts in. I don't have to pre-drill the holes, but I don't want to take a chance of splitting the wood, so that's what I'm going to do. Hit them with the impact driver and tighten them up. What I did was I clamped them in place because I don't want it to move as I drill. Okay, now we can pull the clamps off. Move on to the other side. But first, let's check the clearance. Perfect. Okay, I had to shim the rails up on both sides just to make it completely level with the rest of the table. Because if it's not, then what's going to happen is a piece of wood could get caught up on there when I'm trying to rip or cross cut, and we don't want that. We want it to be seamless. So as you can see, I ripped down a 2x4 and then I nailed with the brad nailer just an 1/8 inch piece of plywood. And now I'm going to just drill through, bolt everything down to the actual plate. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Let's give it a test run here. Nice and smooth, right across. I think I'm going to put a washer underneath here and just bump this side up very little. It's about 32nd, more like a 64th of an inch off over here. So what I'm going to do is when I run the screws in through this side, we're going to put a washer under here, and that'll be it. Now, I don't want these screws protruding through the table, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to countersink them and drill at the same time. Catches. Goes right across. I have a little lip here. It's not completely contacting. Might be about a 64th of an inch of a lip, but that's all right because I can just run the orbital sander on there, level that all off, and that's good. So now not only will it work as a side table, but if I'm ripping long sheets of plywood or even to cross cut. Okay guys, so here it is. We turned a 10-inch contracted table saw to a full cabinet saw. It still folds up. Let's give it the real test and see if it's going to... And that's it, guys. Right there, fits right in the corner. So you can see. That's its home right there. That's where it's going to stay. Okay, guys, I hope you had fun with the project today. If you're thinking about doing something like this, it's well worth it. If you want a cabinet saw, but you really don't have the room, you need a contractor saw, and you have to have it folded up in the corner, this is the way to go. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you next time.